Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session called Building School and Community Partnerships for Student Success. This session is being recorded and will be made available online for viewing. The session is funded by the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan and presented by the Oakland Literacy Council. My name is Amy Gould, and I'm a project coordinator with the Oakland Literacy Council. I'd like to take just a minute to tell you about the council and what it offers. The Oakland Literacy Council provides many free resources to adult English learners. We have one-on-one tutoring, conversation groups, Burlington English, which is an online English learning tool, and also digital literacy support, which includes computers and internet access. All of these services are available for free through the Oakland Literacy Council. To find out about these services and to find the materials from today's session, you can visit the Oakland Literacy website, which is www.oaklandliteracy.com. Today's session will begin with a presentation by our two guest speakers, and then we will have time for your questions afterward. Our speakers will also make available the summary of the key points and the links from today's session. They will be emailed to you after the meeting. Now, I'm going to mute. Looks like everybody's kindly muted that's participating, so that's wonderful. Let's start our meeting by welcoming today's speakers, Mr. Wisam Brikho, Immigrant Student, I'm looking here at your title, Immigrant Student Consultant for Oakland Schools, and Ms. Christy Osborne, English as a Second Language Consultant for Oakland Schools. Welcome to both of you, and thank you both for being here, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Amy. I'm going to take a moment to share our presentation. And welcome today to our session. We're going to be talking about building school and community partnerships for multilingual student success. And I think, again, like this is always an important topic. We know that our children are more successful when the school and the parents and the community come together, but we need each other more than ever right now. So we're grateful for you to be here, and for anybody watching this presentation, thank you very much. Quick introductions. Yes, my name is Christy Osborne, and I am one of the ESL consultants at Oakland Schools. And here's my contact information. If you have any questions or would like to contact me, I do want to say that I was an educator working directly with students for 17 years, and that is really where my heart still is. And so, when it comes to working with families and students and navigating that, that is definitely where my heart and passion are, and have been part of helping connect families with schools for my whole career.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wisam Brikho. I am the Immigrant Student Consultant. Prior to joining Oakland Schools, I joined a mental health clinic, started a trauma recovery center. But most importantly, I'm currently, I also coach the Pontiac High School boys and girls soccer. And so I deal with kids all day long, even though our season is short. However, the connection and what we do on and off the field and after the season. So I'm in constant contact with the kids in Pontiac and surroundings. I'm glad to be here.
So this is just a screenshot for those of us who are here in person. Please feel free to keep your chat box open and use it to ask questions. You can also unmute yourself and talk with us today. We would love to hear from you and would love to be able to answer some of your questions directly. And the first thing we'd like to do is hear from those of you who are here. And actually, I'm going to have Wisam go ahead and start with this one. If you want to go ahead and greet us in your native language, I think maybe 3 or more than that. If you want to go ahead and greet us. And then for
Absolutely.
those who are with us, you
can
put your name and your language and say hello in the chat box as well. And if there's anything else you want to share with us, like how old your children are, if you're an educator and or a parent, you can type that into the chat as well.
No, just the 3 languages, Christy. That's more than enough for me. So, yep, English, that's, Arabic, marhaba, الكل هنا وإن شاء الله الكل بخير وبسلامة. دخوتو بخير إن شاء الله. And then I think Spanish, I'm very, very limited. So I can say just hola.
And so just as sort of a little joke here, what's your biggest challenge this fall? You may have a lot. Here's a little graphic that just tells you exactly what we are working with here as parents and also as teachers. We're all learning distance learning as a second language. Teachers just log into Zabblezoot, scroll down to Zorkel app, and have the kids work on the assignment sent through Cracklezam or check the links posted in Zumble. No worries. There may be a reason why you didn't understand many of those words, and that is because they're not real, but they might as well be real, because when our teachers tell us how to help our children, many times it's hard for us to understand. So this is just a joke. Yeah, we all have many, many challenges this fall. And so I'm going to just take a moment and we're going to meet the participants for a little bit, and then we'll come back together at the end to go ahead and do some questions. And Amy, if you could help us by muting. Okay, so parents, what we're going to have you do, you can use the chat box in Zoom to respond to this. Here's another picture that shows some of the challenges that parents are going through right now. I'd like you to use the chat box. What is your biggest challenge this fall when it comes to online learning, when it comes to your children, taking care of our children? We have our own jobs. We're caring for them. We're making sure that their physical and their health needs are met. What is your biggest challenge? If you could put that in the chat box right now.
And then also, as we're going on with the presentation, if you have any questions, concerns, challenges that you can think of, and in case if you don't want to write it down, you can just go ahead and put it in the chat box, and then we can revisit it once we're ready for questions. That would be good as well.
Okay, so we're hearing in the chat box that there's a lot of work to do, whether it's our children, teaching our children, caring for our children. And then I also see that caring for our children's emotional health is very important right now. We're all really struggling when it comes to emotions, and you know that there's a global pandemic right now, and there are a lot of stressors on us. So we're going to just talk today about some tools that we have, some challenges, and see how we can support you. And before we move on, I'm putting a link in the chat box that you can click on to the resources that we'll be talking about in our presentation today. Some things we'll be discussing, we'll be talking about inviting families as partners. We'll talk about social emotional well-being and provide some learning resources. And finally, we'll have some community resources to share with you.
Thank you, Christy. So I'll share with you my story, my own personal story about coming to the country. But before I get to do that, you know, this number is a huge number when it comes to immigrants in the U.S. We have millions and millions of people that are constantly coming in, trying to come in, and then even after coming in, it's really hard for parents to adjust, if you will. So, Christy, if you want to go to the next slide, please, for me. So I still remember the day like it was yesterday, a hot summer day in Iraq. The phone rang, I picked up. It was my dad asking me if I wanted to go to America. Now, at that moment, I really thought it was a joke. I didn't believe him. I started crying out of joy, just thinking that I can be living and residing here in this, you know, the greatest country on earth. We arrived to the U.S. late 1998. I was 14 at the time. So freshman at a high school here in Oakland County. That was in January of 1999. Now, even though I was born and raised in Baghdad, Iraq, and gone through 2 different wars, witnessed explosions and suicide bombs and airstrikes, but I still I still consider myself lucky comparing to some of the trauma and some of the loss that some of our refugee families, undocumented families, regardless of immigration classifications, that have gone through. I was bullied, harassed, made fun of. I didn't speak a word of English. Kids made fun of my hair at the time or the way I dressed. Regardless, I was this laughing stock of kids. Now, the way I dealt with trauma wasn't by yelling and fighting these kids. I held everything inside. And we're going to talk about emotion and how to handle, but every kid handles the trauma and the depression and anxiety differently. My thing was, I kept everything inside. It kept eating me alive. Now, what I had was my mom, my mother, who was my support person, who was my counselor, my advisor. Now, teenagers, right? 13, 14, 15, they don't usually open up to parents that easily. We look at our parents as, okay, they are just caregivers. They'll provide for me. If I need something, if I want some money, if I wanted to go out, I ask permission and those sort of things. I don't see a lot of our immigrant kids open up to our parents. But it got to a point where I needed to speak to someone. And thankfully, my mom was always there for me. Now, she always gave me that space where she didn't pressure me to talk to her. She gave me the space, but I knew, I didn't have anybody to talk to in schools. And I wish there was someone at school, whether it was a social worker, someone like Christy, an angel when she was in Royal Oak, that kids or parents could talk to if they needed someone. I work at Oakland schools, so in Christy, and we don't have kids here at our building, but we do a lot of consultation to our district. But every school district has this ESL teacher. They have a social worker. They have a psychologist. Now, you might think it's hard to get to them, but it's not, as long as we reach out and we talk and we mention. I'm glad I know you're raising your hand, but give me a minute, that you said in the chat box that you're concerned about your child. And that's great, because we'll talk about more of community resources, and I'll get back to you on your question in a minute. Christy, can you go to the next page, please? Next slide, sorry. The cultural shock. It happened to me directly, and I like to share my story a lot with you guys, because it helps understand what I've gone through, and it could help you as far as when your kids go through. Can you get to the next slide for me, and then we'll get. I want to get to that. No, before that one, the cultural shock cycle, please, Christy. Thank you. So to me, that honeymoon period lasted about 1.5 years. Now, I'm sorry, lasted about 3 months. Sorry, 3 months. I came to the country. We went out. We visited other states, California. We went to West Virginia. I went to Somerset. I played soccer on turf. I went to Myers and I saw a full aisle of candy and cereal and milk, and it was a miracle for me that a store would have so many things. But honeymoon period took 3 months. Right after that, like I said, I was bullied. I went through so many things with that cultural shock. With my parents, their cultural shock started because they needed to get a job right away. They needed to learn the language. They needed to drive a car here, and they need to get a driver's license. So as you can see, that shock cycle, it's different from one kid to another. Your kid might be fluent in English, and it could be the social emotional piece, could be the welcoming piece, could be the adjustment piece. And every person, regardless, it depends on age, will adjust differently. Next slide. Sorry, Christy. And if you get sick of me, Christy, and you want to give me some, I can do that as well. So I'll share with you a few of the things that we're seeing in our schools: food insecurity and hunger. Now, some of our kids might show food insecurity. I had a kid who would just put put some bananas and put extra food in their lunches in their backpacks every day. Now, the school staff thought this kid was just stealing food. Now, reality was, in refugee camps, his sister, or they didn't have lunch, they would have one meal a day, and depends when that donation center would bring food. And so He would bring food thinking that his sister might not have enough food later on in the day. So the social, emotional, the triggering factors, kids reacting to loud noises, as you know, whether it's in school, sometimes if the teacher yells or raises her voice, or sometimes if something, the bell rings, that it always will trigger some flashbacks of what happened during wars, what happened during their home country. And, you know, running. We show a lot of kids run out of school just because, you know, the space between school is a safe place, right? And mom's or dad's chest is a safe place for these younger kids. So kids show running when they, as soon as the schools runs out, and they run from school, from their teacher, from their safe place to mom and dad. In between, that's really the dangerous spot. And that's what they saw, whether in Iraq and Syria and Nigeria, Eastern European, some of South American countries, where kids are so afraid from point A to point B, so that to cross from point A to point B, they run so fast to try to get to that. So, you know, next slide, please, Christy. The family engagement, the fact that we need parents, we need support group more than ever, whether it's our ESL teacher, whether it's our special ed teacher, whether it's mom and dad, whether it's after school program. I coach soccer, and I done it in many districts. It's because I feel a lot of our immigrant groups, whether it's social engagement after school, whether it's sports, whether it's something, we need that. People ask me, what did I need if I were to go back? If I were to go back, I would love to be enrolled in some sort of an after-school program, like sports, like social engagement clubs, things that I would express my frustration, things that would express my challenges, my emotions. All I had was my mom, but I wish I would have taken that out on the track or on the soccer field. Something that I can, you know, boxing, wrestling, something that I can get all emotions. And you see me, even when I'm talking now, whenever I mention my story, it brings flashbacks to me. It brings triggering factors that, you know, I wish there was somebody that would have asked me how I was doing. And I feel like we've doing so much a better job. You know, of course, with COVID, this is, you know, unprecedented times. I can't say, hey, you know, hopefully next month things will go back and we'll have the vaccine and everybody's going back to school. And, you know, we're living in a world where, unfortunately, we don't know what's going to come next for us. That's why with Christy and I, we do these family engagement sessions. We try to bring in these resources, but because it could be a social emotional piece for your son, and it could be community resources for somebody else. It could be, how do I get it through this program? Or it could be, how can I pay my bills? Or it could be as simple as, is there somebody at school that I can reach out to so I can have my son talk to? And so, you know, we'll try and talk more and more. I'll be more than happy to, you know, tell you how I handle things. But before we get to the next slide, I want to share with you, even though I learned the language and I was able to speak the language, which only took me 8 months at the time, because at that time, my school, I was the only one. Imagine you're the only one that speak Arabic. So I was forced to speak English quickly. Now in about 6 to 8 months, I learned the language, but I kept everything inside. Teachers thought I still had a language barrier, but I wasn't. It was the trauma. Teachers would tell my mom, it's just a language barrier. Once he learns the language, he's fine. Her and I knew that wasn't it. So my senior year, I started a new high school, brand new high school. I was so excited to start a brand new high school. And at times, starting a new high school could be traumatic for some kids, but to me, it was a fresh start. I wanted to start somewhere new. However, 2 weeks into my senior year in 2001, September 11th happened. That trauma started right back. Just because I was from the Middle East, from Iraq, kids started calling me a terrorist. Just because I was born and raised in Baghdad, Iraq. So imagine that trauma stayed with me throughout senior year. So, you know, sharing my story with you, just to give you an idea that everyone needs someone, whether it's my mom for me, whether it's the ESL teacher, whether it's their science teacher, their principal, their support person. There's always someone. And for me, even though I let everything inside, I was able to talk to my mom and, my family. And that's what's important. Finding that person, and if you're a teacher at the time, if you're a teacher now, that's how we, invite you, to learn more about the family, to learn more about the student, so we can share resources and you can share resources, and, on any given day. And I'll touch more about my story and what we can do and what we're not, but I want to touch on everything that we have prepared for you today.
Okay, so I mentioned that I was a teacher. I taught 2nd grade, I taught 5th grade. I then worked with kindergarten through 12th grade English learners for 18 years. And there was one question that I got from parents all the time. That question was, how can I help my child? So if you've ever wondered, how can I help and support my child? I'm going to share with you some of the ways that you can do that. And so we're going to just look at, again, we're talking about how can I help my child? We're talking about how can I help my child socially? How can I help my child emotionally? How can I help my child with schoolwork? We want to do the best that we can for our children. Your teachers want your children to succeed too. But sometimes schools need a little bit of help from you as parents as well. So we have, in the United States, 4.6 million English language learners. Many of those English language learners can talk to their friends, and they're able to use the language, and they sound like they know English. But many of those English learners still need help when it comes to math and social studies and science. Sometimes it can take 7 years to 10 years for people to learn a language and be ready to learn science in a language and be ready for all of the academics that students need to learn. And so when your child is an English learner, I just want to remind you that it gives them a lot of different supports through the school that you can ask for. First, it will help your children with English and be able to communicate with teachers in English. But it will also help your children with math, science, social studies, and all of the content areas as well. Also, ESL teachers are very helpful to step in and help families with whatever they need. So if your child has an ESL teacher, sometimes as a parent, that person can be the first person that you go to say, I need help, I need information, I need an interpreter, I need someone to help me in my native language. Your ESL teacher is there to help support you. So please feel free to reach out to that person. Many times they can also provide tutoring through their budget and different learning materials as well. So make sure that that's somebody that you know that you can contact as well. And I just wanted to take a moment to tell you, even if your children are struggling, it's wonderful that they speak more than one language. Research shows that bilingual youth, bilingual children, in the long run, have better emotional intelligence, stronger problem-solving skills, and improved academic outcomes. Many times, children who speak 2 or 3 or 4 languages do better than children who only speak English 10 years from now. So just know that that is a big strength of your children. And I was just wondering if you agree with that, if you see benefits to your children speaking and understanding your language. Maybe they read in that language, maybe they write in that language. And you can put that in the chat box if you've seen that that's a big strength for your family. And so we want you to know that we agree with that. And we thank you for sharing your family and your language and your culture with us. And so I wanted to talk to you about some rights that you have as parents. The first one is communication. As Wisam said, when his family came speaking Arabic, it is hard, especially in a pandemic when school closes, to get the information that you need, to learn about schedules, to make sure that your children are safe, to know how to help your children. But you have a right to communication, and your school has the responsibility to provide it for you. So one thing that you can do is you can ask your school to send you text messages in your native language or emails, and you can use Google Translate. And some of those tools have a lot of really great features. Or if you need an interpreter, you need to have a conversation back and forth, you can ask your school to help you do that, to help find an interpreter to help you get the information that you need. As a parent, you have the right to ask questions about how your child is doing, to ask questions about how you can help your child. You also have the right to tell the school information about your children. You might want your teacher to know if your child is experiencing struggles. And if you know that there's a way that that teacher can help your child, you have the right to be able to tell the teacher how you believe they can help your child as well. And so there are just a few things to remind you that you have the right to get and to be able to access and hear about in a language you can understand, like information about pandemic, health information, scheduling, report cards, how your children are doing, parent-teacher conferences. If you need an interpreter, you can make sure that you have one by talking to the school. And again, just being in contact with your ESL teacher will really help with those things as well. And I want to encourage you, as I said, please use your home language at home. It's good to practice English with your family, but it's a huge benefit for your children to speak your language, to talk together in your language, to read in your language, to write together in your language. Be sure to celebrate your language in your home, because when your children are adults, we want them to be able to raise a family that speaks 2 or 3 or 4 languages as well. And you being able to help your child in math in your native language using the strategies that you know is also a benefit as well. So feel free to help your children. Your children might say, that's not the way we do it in school. And they might say, you know, that the way you're saying it isn't right because it's in your native language, but helping your children in your native language is always a benefit to them. And so in your resources, I have a link, I'm going to put it again in the chat box, to the resources for the presentation. And one thing that I did put in here is some parent tip sheets for literacy and reading. So just to show you those really quickly, we have translated resources in Japanese, Spanish, and Arabic that show how you can do phonics and fluency and comprehension in your native language. And also reading tips in 13 languages that go through the different grade levels that can help support you and have your child learn literacy at home as well. And again, speaking with your home language with your child builds strong cultural connections and is great for their development. Even if your children don't think so, it's definitely great for your children to continue to speak their home language at home. Wisam, you're on mute.
Can I ask? Hello.
Akiko, you have a question?
Yeah. Actually, my son graduated ESL class, but I really need the help in the interpreter or something. And then can I get some help from ESL student, ESL teacher?
I think that you can talk to the ESL teacher who can help set up support for you as well. So, you know, sometimes they have a group that your child could join, or they can just help you with the school find help other places too. So I still think that your ESL teacher or your classroom teacher can help you get that extra support that you need for your child. And it might be reading support, there might be different areas of support that you need, but they can help you find what you do need for your child. So that's a good person to have a conversation with.
Akiko, the Troy School District has a list of all the translators that the school district has. And the teacher, the ESOL teacher, I forgot her name right now, from BMIS, she has this list.
Thank you, but that is important for all parents to hear, that schools do have the capability through things like talking points. Talking points is a texting system where a teacher can text you your child's missing work or just updates about what's going on in the school in your native language. So schools have tools for that. Sometimes you might need to ask for them if you're not currently getting them. And I'm going to turn it back over to Wisam.
Actually, today I have a conference to my son's classroom teacher, but I'm not good to English. Then maybe just 10 minutes. It's not good conversation. I just guess. And can I use that?
Yeah. So after our presentation today, I'm happy to work with you on some suggestions for your conference tonight. Okay.
Thank you.
And I wanted to applaud your questions. Thank you for joining these sessions and for asking, because like I said before, I wish, you know, some of these resources that you'll be hearing from later on, or from Christy and from Patricia tomorrow, that existed 20 years ago, so my mom could have benefited more and helped me, my brother and sister. See, that's what I always encourage a lot of parents on, you know, on daily basis. They ask, and I'm like, always ask questions. Don't worry that you're bothering someone, interrupting someone. Sure. But to me, it's the social emotional, the learning for your child is beyond important. So I just want to applaud you that, you know, you showed up and you're asking questions. That's really, really important. When it comes to our, my duty, if you will, here at Oakland Schools, could be as simple as, you know, someone at Amy called me a few weeks ago asking if I can do any of the professional learning. So I can do, you know, we can coordinate some of the professional learning, professional development. I do a lot of the immigration process. We do overview of immigration, refugees, undocumented, cultural awareness, resettlement process, the trauma, mental health. So a lot on the professional learning. We've done it to many nonprofits, agencies, school districts, and then the coordination of services. You know, if a school district's unable to navigate a specific resource, if they need help with some other things, they would contact me. We'll set something up. I'll give you an example with what we're working on right now with the Thanksgiving and holiday program, where we try to get a Thanksgiving basket with turkeys and along with other canned foods and goods and whatnot. And we just target whatever school districts, or school districts would contact us, and they have, you know, 30 families here, 50 families here. And so what I do is coordinate a lot of the services with the nonprofits, with the community agencies, faith groups, that sort of things, to see what's out there and how we can help. Teachers are so busy. School administrators are beyond busy with testings and teaching and everything else at the school. They might not have enough time to gather resources. And that's how Christy and I, you know, do our job. You know, with Christy's trying to get as much as the curriculum and assessment and everything else, try to get to the school districts, and, you know, with myself trying to get a lot of the community resources. You know, examples of some of the things that school districts can reach out is, you know, they had a refugee kid who'd been in the country for 3 months. Both of their kids lost their hearing because of the war. And this was in August, last August, and they needed to start school in September. So imagine, so Medicaid was not working, so they didn't have health insurance. They needed to get hearing implants and hearing aids for the daughter. They didn't have transportation. They didn't speak the language, and no health insurance. So imagine with all the legwork that we need to get to the coordination with translation and transportation in just 3 weeks. So our goal, if you will, is try to keep kids in school, try to navigate the system, regardless of how long it takes. I don't care how long it's going to take me, how many phone calls, how many miles I have to drive to get that hearing aid to this 9-year-old, so he can actually start school and feel like he's just part of everybody else. I'm sick and tired of where people say, oh, it's too much work. Absolutely. We can't, the idea of every child learns the same and no child left behind and that sort of things is, it sounds good on paper, but it's much harder trying to get a kid that needs this. But what the school systems do in every school district, what they do is just tremendous. And that's what it is. It's the coordination of services. It's really, really important. I mean, we can talk about the learning resources and that sort of thing, but if this kid doesn't have that hearing aid, right? If this kid doesn't have the Chromebook that they need at the school districts, if they don't have internet at home, during COVID, right? We can talk about this is what we're doing, but if that kid doesn't have the technology and the internet, that's all gone in the window. If mom and dad need to translate a document and the kid's the only one that speaks the language, I don't want the parents to rely on the child, take him out of school to go to Social Security and to go to DHHS and to go to these different places. The kid is not supposed to serve as a translator, right? That's why we have all these community resources that we'll talk about. Christy, if we can go to the next slide, please. We can talk about all these resources that we have. Just a sample of this, and I'll share with you on the next slide with all the resources. This is just a few, I mean, literally 5 or 6 nonprofit or community that are available in the Pontiac and surrounding city, but there's hundreds more that we can get to. And every single one of them does things differently. Every single one of them, I've reached out to every single one when it comes to parent-teacher conferences. If there's a language that we need, if there's a fund that we need, if family needs help with paying the bills, if families need help with mental health services, this is really, really important. Mental health services, the social emotional piece. If a kid needs to speak to a therapist and that family only has Medicaid, but they only want a Spanish speaking therapist or an Arabic speaking or a Chinese, the resources are out there. It's just doing the legwork, Googling, searching, contacting. Like Patricia said, contacting your self teacher, because she has hundreds and hundreds of resources that you can help you. Obviously, that one particular resource might help you, but it might not help another family. Christy, if we can get to that second page, and that's one of the examples of resources when it comes to ICE, immigration, customs enforcement, that sort of things. Next slide, please. But the next one is that. So we'll look at the. Let me see, what am I looking at? Oh, can we get to that other one, or was it the resources page? Oh, you know what? I think it was the resources. Let me click on that. Yeah, that resources one. Yep, perfect. So this is an example of the work that the community agencies, many of our colleagues in Oakland schools, including Christy, that we have many resources on the national level, on the statewide. And if you click on that, the resources under translated community resources, it should take you to that statewide COVID. Yep, right there. And part of the Welcoming Michigan, and it has a ton of resources of COVID, before COVID, after COVID, a lot of the grants, many, pretty much almost every single thing is translated into either Arabic, Spanish, and other languages. Tips as far as helping out with mental health resources, tips for what we're doing during free time, a link to the Michigan Immigrant Resource Group, where they have many information about how to get a driver's license, how to get a Social Security, about employment, family law, know your rights, immigration and customs enforcement, knowing your rights. And again, fraud. If people knock on your door and trying to sell you this, again, on the voting thing, it's a guidelines. If you go through it, there's many resources out there that can really help navigate the system. We, for our immigrant families thinking, oh my God, this is too hard, I have to go through it. Even if you don't, just knowing that your teachers, your classroom teachers, your kids' teachers, they have these resources. And if they don't have these resources, they have us, they have Christy, they have Wisam, they have so many consultants at Oakland schools that with just a simple phone call, with an email, we can get everything that is catered to that kid's. I remember Christy, when she was in Royal Oak, when she had an issue, she would call me, and then we would spend half an hour to an hour talking about that family, and then talk about what kind of resources that are catered to that family. And that's just one family. I mean, imagine we have 28 school districts, and every ESL teacher will go over and beyond to try to help the family. So just know that even though we're living with this whole COVID thing, just know, even though we have COVID, we also have these resources. We have many, many resources, whether it's trying to get your kids engaged, whether it's trying to get, sports and all after school activities, were still kept going, even though during COVID. And they're looking at many, many more resources as schools are transitioning to going back to schools and going back to in-person seating, whether it's 2 days a week, 5 days a week, or virtual learning. Just know that many of our agencies are there. Many of our agencies are willing to help as much as possible. They have, agencies to help paying the bills and that sort of things. But, I always want to go back and talk about the social emotional piece, the mental health of your children, whether it's your neighbors, your family, your friends, people that you see, just more than ever now, checking on them. Like the way my mom would always check after school. So how was your day? What do you need? I'm always here for you. See, simple things that, teachers are always there for you, but a lot of times they're so beyond busy, they might not have the time to, share that with you. But I promise you, once you actually say something to them, or that I need an extra time to tell you about what's happening, I'm sure that, they will go and make time for you. So just know we're here for you. There is many, many resources, whether it's on this document or whatever Christy will share with you, or the Oakland Literacy Group. There's many, many things. It is tough. It is hard trying to navigate the system. I get it. Trust me. I'm the one that's putting everything together, so I completely understand that it might be impossible to navigate the system. Our contact information are on there. That's my email address. That's Christy's information. I promise you, if I don't get back with you right away, I'll get back to you the next day. And I'll try to understand what you're going through, and I'll try the resource trying to get you. Look, we might not have every single answer, but I promise to try to get you as close to that agency, to that person that will help you solve your problem. We're here for you. We're here for the school districts. We're here for our immigrant families to try to get you to navigate the system. And it could take some time. And you know how things go here. It's all about navigating the system. So that could take days. But just know that your teachers, school districts are going through so much right now with transitioning, with, because it just happened. It literally happened. It took couple of months, and school districts had to go in from in-seat learning to virtual learning in a matter of couple of weeks to try to get things going so kids would not lose out on education. So it took a lot. So the least that we can do, we try to help them by just gathering information, gathering resources, so it will make their jobs a little bit easier, because we know they're the frontline workers. They're the ones who they're trying to answer all of your questions with parent-teacher conferences and that sort of things.
So just a couple more resources I'll mention before we have some time for questions. So we'll be able to chat with you, and you can ask questions that are coming up in your mind. If you know any families who need a little bit of support financially, there is an Oakland County micro grant. I believe it's $500, and people can apply, and then certain families are going to be getting some financial help. So there are links for that in the agenda, or excuse me, in the resource list. And then also we want for you to be able to vote and for you to get information in your native language. And so there's a link in here to voters registration forms and also voting information in all of these different languages for the state of Michigan. Of course, that election is coming up in November, and we don't want language to be a barrier. So if you have families who might need to get voting information in their native language, please pass on this link as well. So at this point, we're going to just open up for some questions from you. Again, Wisam said, not only have we worked in districts with many families, we also work with all 28 districts in Oakland County and charter schools. And so we're hoping that you feel comfortable to share with us, you know, ask us any questions that we can help you with and support you with at this time.
Okay. No further questions maybe at this time. I know our time is running out for the official session, so I wanted to thank all of you for participating, and a special thanks to Christy and Wisam for their resources and expertise they provided us with today. And Patricia as well chimed in with her resources. So thank you. And if you found this session helpful, there are 2 more sessions in this series, and you can find them at the Oakland Literacy website. I will email it to you along with the session summary from today. So thank you very much. I will turn off the recording and say goodbye to everyone.